and welcome to episode number 6 of the Mobile Woodshed. This episode is an ode to Hubert Sumlin. And if you don't know about Hubert yet, you've got a world of music to dig into and enjoy. He played guitar for Howlin' Wolf, a little bit with Muddy Waters, innumerable other bluesmen, Jimmy Reed, James Cotton. He's on recordings with Chuck Berry. He was revered by, I'd say, the Mount Rushmore of classic rock guitar players. The whole British invasion looked up to him. People like Keith Richards, Jimmy Page, Eric Clapton. Jimi Hendrix famously listed Hubert as his favorite guitar player in an interview. I was about 13 the first time I heard about Hubert. I was taking lessons from Tim Arnold, and I was listening to a lot of Stevie Ray Vaughan, which I still do, but he said, here's a CD of Howlin' Wolf, and take this home and listen to the guitar player on there. And so I took note and fell in love with that music, and lo and behold, a few years later I'd get to meet Hubert and get to know him, and I had the opportunity to record with him and play a few shows, and I just wanted to share some personal memories and stories. If you're more interested in just the guitar stuff, forward a few minutes down the line here. It was an interesting road that led me to Hubert. I was still in junior high, and my band at the time, Noah and the Stratocats, we got invited to play the Chicago Blues Fest for the first time up in Grant Park. And we played that Saturday evening, and they invited us back to play the next morning. And that Sunday morning, I was approached by Jimmy Delane, who is a great guitar player, singer, and he's the son of legendary bluesman Jimmy Rogers, who played in Muddy's band and recorded for Chess. And he said, "Hey, I'm working out at this place called Blue Heaven Studios in Kansas, and you should come out sometime and see what we're up to." So that began a series of Greyhound bus trips from Dayton, Ohio, out to Salina, which it's smack dab in the middle of the country. They call it the Crossroads of America. And they had renovated this old church into a state-of-the-art recording studio, analog recording studio that Chad Kassem was behind. And he's like the consummate Renaissance man. He's done a lot of great things, but at this time, he had this record label, APO, and he was in the process of recording all these first-generation bluesmen, people like Honey Boy Edwards, Little Hatch, Henry Townsend, Jimmy Lee Robinson. And every year he would do these Blues Masters at the Crossroads. And they invited us out to play, and that was 1999. And Hubert was on the bill, and that's when I first met him. And I remember sitting out on these church steps one evening and him telling stories, and just beautiful guy. And we hung out that weekend as well. And I remember him telling some stories about the Wolf, and it's a little foggy. And I haven't seen this anywhere in any books or anything, but he was talking about the Wolf and how they got the reverb on his voice. And I'd swear he said that they would put a microphone at the end of an air duct, like on another floor above from where they were recording. Maybe somebody out there knows if that's true or not. I'm not sure if I remember right. But anyway, we would see him again. The next year we went to Blue Heaven to record our album, Buzz Me. And they flew Hubert in to play on a few cuts. But that session garnered a whole album's worth, which is in a vault somewhere. And I hope it sees the light of day because he was playing great. And he's playing this Gibson Gold Top Les Paul, and we were recording in the church, and we were set up on this altar, and he was right by my side, and on the floor that you had Marty Romeo on bass and Josh Johnson on drums. And I was really naive at the time. I offered him a guitar pick before we started, which he famously, plays with his fingers on his right hand. The Wolf inspired him to do that, and that's subsequently really how he found his tone and sound and voice on the guitar. But it was an amazing session, and we'd see him again, what would have been our CD release party in 2001. They had stalled the release, so we put out a Live at Jilly's EP, and Hubert came in to play. It was a Toys for Tots event up in Columbus at the Thirsty Year that our friend Herb Solers put on, and he just tore the place up. And then we'd see him again in 2003, the City Folk Festival in Dayton, Ohio, which used to be a great festival. They would have bands from all around the world. West Africa, Hawaii, Western swing bands from Texas, And I remember those after parties were really cool too, because it'd be like in the lobby, and there was Bobby Ngannou from Hawaii playing lap steel, and West African musicians, and Hot Club from Cowtown members from Texas, like a world music celebration. It was beautiful. But we backed up Hubert for 2 days in a row. It was, I just saw the dates, July 5th and 6th of 2003. And so I went to pick him up he was staying in one of the dorms down in UD, University of Dayton campus. And it was at night, and there was a storm going on, and we got back to, I was living with my mom at the time, and so we took him back to the house. It was in a duplex, and the storm had knocked out our power. So, and I had set up all this equipment down in the basement for us to rehearse, which I don't think we would have rehearsed anyway. But Hubert walked in, and he set his hat down, and he sat on our couch, and my mom just had candles out, and she had made little sandwiches for him. And it was like this mystical experience, though, because we're sitting around candlelight, and I have this image and memory of him, telling stories about Howlin' Wolf, and his hands throwing shadows on the wall behind him. And one story I remember from that was, he said they were traveling down south when he was with the wolf, and a mule was in the middle of the road and blocking their way. And so the wolf got out, and he just started firing his gun into the air. And Hubert said, "Wow, that mule, he must have ran clear into the next state, So, but it was like a mystical experience. And then the shows were great. And that weekend, he had me. He would leave his Strat at our place, and it was this kind of Fiesta red. I can't really remember the color, but it was this Stratocaster that Jimmy Vivino from Conan O'Brien's band had given him. And Hubert had recently had another guitar stolen, and so on the back of this it said something like, if you even think about stealing this guitar, you're gonna burn in hell, So anyway, that was amazing. And then I'd see him again. He played at the Fur Piece Ranch in 2004 with Bob Margolin, and that's when I had him sign the back of my headstock here. You could still kind of see it. It's barely there. Tommy Shannon's right underneath it there. But and then I would see him for the last time in 2009 at that same place at Fur Piece Ranch. And he was just a beautiful person and one of the greatest musicians. And I'm so grateful that I got to know him. And he's been such an influence on my life and my music and guitar playing. And we'll get into some guitar playing here. I can't play like Hubert. Nobody can. But hopefully we can at least get a glimpse into his approach and style, and hope you get something from it. So thanks for joining me. All right, I thought we'd start out with one of Hubert's most signature guitar parts from Killing Floor, which it's been covered by countless people, from Mike Bloomfield to Jimi Hendrix at the Monterey Pop Festival. It's a ferocious part, and like any of these mobile woodsheds, I can't play anything verbatim, but I'm going to try my best to relay, his approach. One of the main things to keep in mind with Hubert Sumlin is, he didn't use a guitar pick. He did, I think, early in his career, but the wolf nudged him to use his fingers, and he subsequently really found his voice. And like I said in the intro, I was still in high school when I first met him, and I didn't know any of this stuff, and I offered him a pick, and he just held up his right hand like this, like I got it taken care of. So anyway, let's just look at the intro right quick, and let's see, got a little bit of reverb, trying to get a bit of that chest reverb. I'm not hooked up to an air duct or anything, but I'm playing through this old Silvertone little amp that I think he may have used a Silvertone amp on these recordings, but unfortunately there's no video of any of this. So here's the intro. It's out of A, and it starts kind of on the turnaround, and I would swear that the tape didn't start until he was about halfway through that first rhythm. So I've never heard anybody really talk about this, but it sounds like he's about halfway through this first chord. So it's like, let's see here. Once again. So what's going on is, he's got this real galloping rhythm, and he does sort of variations of that throughout the tune. But these are just a turnaround in A, so you're going from the E chord, D chord, A chord, and he's sort of volleying off that seventh note, which would make, a seventh chord, and bouncing from that seventh to the fifth of each chord. And he does that little hammer on before the whole band comes in. From E up to G. I've noticed watching videos of Hubert and seeing him play that as far as what he's using on his right hand, it's a lot of thumb and index finger for the most part. Down and up strokes, Now when the band comes in, I just learned this not too long ago, but Buddy Guy's actually on that recording, and he's playing acoustic guitar, and he's holding down that signature bass line with the bass player. And really Hubert's really never does that, he's mostly covering the top part, these major to using these thirds, the signature. So A major, and these are thirds. And a little signature move that he does that, you'll hear so many cover versions of this, and people kind of forget some of these little nuances. But one of the things that Hubert would throw in was these slide ups, these glissandos. And that really just colors the sound, So yeah. And he'll go from kind of strumming those to really using his thumb and index finger, pinching those thirds that are on the third and first string. And when it comes around to the actual solo section, he just kind of hits that main rhythm a little more ferociously. So, and really outlining that gallop rhythm. And he'll do that gallopy rhythm, and then there's another kind of rhythm that he throws in there that it's sort of piling off the beat or on the ands, like let's see. it's just, Hubert's playing is so funky, and if you listen to him with headphones on, you just hear all this funky rhythm stuff going on in between the lines. And on that recording, when he goes up to the 5 chord, he really outlines that. You'll hear that on the live recordings as well. And there's not a whole lot of like just single string lead playing on the original Killing Floor, but he throws in a few little lines during the verses. I think it's after the wolf goes like, should have went on to Mexico. He does this little riff. It's like, so you're on the turnaround. So funky, and if you really listen to it, it's so rhythmic, and I was kind of dialing into that riff, and I thought, wow, Hendrix must have been dialed into that as well at some point, because I think that's kind of where he got that gallopy rhythm that he used for his interpretation at Monterey, got that right hand funkiness going. So that's all I got to say about Killing Floor for now, and I'm going to kind of group some tunes together that have similar feels in his catalog. So another one that's sort of in this vibe is Shake For Me, so we're going to hit that next. All right, like I said, we're going to group together songs that have similar feels, and one that's similar to Killing Floor is Shake For Me. One of the main differences in it is on Killing Floor, the bass line's going to a major third on that walk. On Shake For Me, well, it's in B, is another difference, but it's going to a minor third, so kind of a tougher sound. And on this one, Hubert has rhythmically this sort of understated cool thing happening. He's sliding up from the minor third to the major third into that major chord, sometimes. And I've seen videos of Jimmy Vaughn playing this as well, and he kind of emulates that whole thing by bending the minor third up to the major third to make a major chord. Really kind of a cool, quirky sound. And sometimes, as he's going into that, it almost sounds arpeggiated, or at least comes off with that effect. I'm going to play sort of the rhythm part against just a loop bass line here so you can get a real feel. So yeah, on those, he's also doing sort of an understated, 7th chord in between the slide ups. And sometimes he'll embellish that with this hammering onto what would be a 6th chord. Little trills off that 6th as well on the B string. No two bars or measures are the same. He's always kind of playing around, which is beautiful. So as far as the solo section, it's a great solo section, and it has a lot of Hubert's signature moves in it, and this solo, it seems like it's been emulated a ton of times, and you'll hear people covering Killing Floor and throw this solo into that a lot of times. I think I'm guilty of that as well. But so here, I'm gonna try to do the solo for you and then break it down. Something like that. So yeah, it's really wild. So he starts with sort of a hammer-on pull-off riff, and actually glissandos off that root note, that high root, and then landing on the 6th on the B string there, and then he does this elastic rubber band bend, that very Hubert. And as it falls down out of the air, it does this. And then I swear he's pulling down on that bend. I'm not for certain, but it just sounds like it to me. He could be bending up. It's hard to tell. And on the turnaround, that bend up and bend down, down to the 5, to the 4 note, and then resolves with. Which is a wild little riff. Alright, we're going to visit a couple here that have a similar feel, and I would say there would be like a 2-beat or a romp feel, and the first being a very iconic riff and tune, Smokestack Lightning, and it's all based out of E, and you know, they have this thing called dead thumbing, and that's when you're kind of holding down a bass note, so that would just be your low E here, with your thumb. Once again, we're just going to be mainly using thumb and first finger on the right hand, or your picking hand. You might be a left-handed player watching. And the riff is... So you're really bouncing between going to that minor third on the high E, which is a G, and the 7 on the B string, which is a D. Sometimes Noah's kind of holding down that low E bass. That's the main feel of that tune. Another one that's I'd call it in the 2-beat realm would be this thing called Moanin' for My Baby. Now that's on the Moanin' for Midnight album, and Moanin' for Midnight's also on there, but that Moanin' for Midnight was recorded at Sun Records and had a guy named Willie Johnson on guitar solely, but once Hubert joined on, they also added this tune, and it's kind of like Moanin' for Midnight, but the riff is slightly different. If you listen to the recorded version, you know, he kind of focuses in on the single note playing. I want to show you, he played it a certain way when I recorded with him this unreleased track version of that, where he adds more right hand action rhythmically, but the notes it's just E, B, and then a half step down off the tonic, played with him in the studio, he did this version that was more like, incorporating more of the E chord and open strings, a lot funkier. And I remember Josh Johnson, who played drums on that session, when we were done, he said, "Man, his right hand is so funky. It's like playing with a percussionist or a conga player." All right, I wanted to touch on another 2-beat feel, Howlin' for My Darlin', which has always been one of my favorites. It's based out of G, and the rhythm part is really oriented around that triad, the top of the major chord, and bouncing off, barring these top 3 strings, G, B, E string, on the 5th fret. So you got, and you'd walk up from D, F, G. And that's what's beautiful about this era of blues and Hubert's playing is, he'll throw in lead lines with his rhythm playing. They're kind of interwoven. And when it comes to the solo, it's just like that. He's playing the rhythm part and the lines interwoven. And you can really hear the swing in his playing on that solo. That's not exactly it, but that's kind of the idea. And I've heard live recordings, or even the times that I had the chance to play it with him, he would do these low bass lines like or this one I remember, chromatic down to the 3rd. All right, well, if you're still watching, you must be in it for the long haul with me. And we're taking the deep dive. And right now, we're going to take a look at Hubert's playing on slow blues. Nobody played slow blues like Hubert. And if you listen to tracks like Going Down Slow or Tail Dragger, there's also a live version of Going Down Slow, live in Germany, 1964 with Howlin' Wolf. And it's just so expressive and beautiful, and the way he milks those bends, like and you really hear how he uses his index finger on the slow blues, like on runs. It's such a different sound and feel than if you were to use a pick. Just gives everything that particular, the way the notes sort of blossom out. So I just have a generic slow blues rhythm, and I'm going to think in terms of that Going Down Slow and Tail Dragger, and just try to emulate some of the motifs that I've heard on those records. So to give you an idea of his slow blues playing here. taking a deep dive into the guitar playing of Hubert Sumlin. And next we're going to hit Commit a Crime, which has always been a favorite of mine. It's one of the meanest sounding tracks of all time. Stevie Ray Vaughan covered it. It's all based out of E minor, and there's a very haunting piano line that goes throughout the track. It just stays on one chord, so it has this hypnotic trance to it. And it kicks off with Hubert sliding up to the 12th fret on a low E with one or two strings ringing out. I think you hear that minor. And then just the main motif that runs throughout. And what that is he's using his third finger. He's up on the 14th fret and barring the G string and B string there, and then going down a whole step with to his first finger and shaking those. And like a lot of other tracks, he's interweaving lead playing with that rhythm playing. Some more of that real expressive string on the bending on the G string. In the solo, he's just doing sort of expressive bending, almost behind the beat, to the B string at the 15th fret. And that little bit just almost behind that beat, it just gives it even more of that expressive wailing sound. Then up to the 17th on the high E. All right, thank you for joining me for this glimpse into the guitar playing of Hubert Sumlin. It was humbling, to say the least, even to get a surface level interpretation of his approach. It's a universe unto itself and a lifelong study. I hope to come back and maybe do another episode and hit more tunes and even try those again. I highly recommend you check out the original recordings with the Wolf, and Hubert's whole career is fascinating. And I'm going to continue on with this Woodshed series. It's obviously not a conventional workshop or a guitar lesson as much as it's a lesson for me as I dig back in and I'm relearning my instrument. So thank you for your support, and wish everybody a very happy new year and hope to see you soon. Take care.